Sometimes, exploring means revisiting again, when a special place may have more to reveal. I'm author and researcher Mike Luoma, returning once more to an area in the Jericho, Vermont woods, where I've already come across odd-shaped erratics and remarkable cairn-like stone constructs. Trail maps told of cairns here, I'd discovered, but bad weather kept me away until early July of 23. And even so, as seen in my first presentation on this Jericho site, it was still raining, and the mosquitoes were thick. But neither kept me from seeing some remarkable stone assemblages through the verdant green undergrowth. There was obviously more to see behind and below the abundant greenery. And I did indeed find several more stone assemblages upon my return to a much barer site last November, as chronicled in my second presentation on these odd-shaped erratics and cairn-like stone constructs in Jericho. Once assumed to be remnants of the area's agricultural past, it's instead been discovered that some of New England's ancient stonework, like these stone assemblages, could be indigenous stone prayers, part of ancient ceremonial stone landscapes, or CSLs, as the United South and Eastern Tribes USET resolutions describe them. CSL advocate Doug Harris, retired Deputy Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Narragansett, suggests it is improper to use European terms for what could be indigenous ceremonial stonework. So I call these cairn-like stone constructs instead of simply cairns. I'd visited the land of the Narragansett and seen cairn-like stone constructs back in March at the Manitou-Hasanash Preserve in Hopkinton, Rhode Island. A pair of twin stone assemblages there, which weren't really twins, reminded me of two stone assemblages at this Jericho site, twins which also weren't really twins. Pictures and videos I'd taken weren't enough. I wanted to revisit the stone assemblages and see if I could figure out why they reminded me of each other. As I headed in towards the site, however, I decided to continue past the stone assemblages first. The trail map mentioning the cairnfield had also told of a stone wall up along the path ahead, and I hadn't yet seen this on my first two visits. I thought I might see about this stone wall and then circle back to the other stonework, seeing what I might find. Turned out I'd make a few interesting finds, including an entire second cairnfield of older, more collapsed, and subtle stone structures, a few hollows away from the first. Some of New England's old stone walls may be much older than assumed, and may be indigenous stonework, or adapted indigenous stonework. Documented indigenous stone walls in New England date back over 4,000 years. As I followed this stone row, the coursework grew more interesting, less linear, more organic. There were surrounded stones, and some curious placement of quartz. This could potentially be indigenous work. The stone row disappeared for a short time, perhaps buried a bit, before rising back up. This section is still covered up fairly well by branches, leaves, and duff. After this opening, we see more of the actual stonework. Interesting use of quartz. These are not regular European-style courses. This looks organic. There's a nice chunk of quartz down here at the end. This appeared to be an end of this stone row, if not the end. Heading back on the other side, we again see the organic coursework. A curiously shaped boulder. Was it part of the stone row? There are several boulders on this end. I didn't want to stray too far away from the twins, so I crossed the path and began to head back towards the other features. A curiously shaped boulder drew my attention off the current path. Likely a glacial erratic, deposited here as the ice sheets melted at the end of the Ice Age. I'm reminded that inlets from Glacial Lake Winooski and the Champlain Sea once flowed nearby. I've found a great deal of interesting stonework along the former shores of glacial lakes and seas. While I believe there's a correlation, all I can call it at this point is a coincidence. One perhaps simply attributable to coincidental placement of raw materials by the receding lakes and seas. Or maybe the indigenous stoneworking traditions connect back through the millennia to an ancestral indigenous culture, a maritime culture, sailing those bodies of water at the Ice Age's end. Food for thought. I next noticed a buried stone assemblage along what could have been an older path, though no longer the current trail. It wasn't connected to anything else, and didn't seem to be part of a stone row, but it seemed to be something. Ceremonial stone landscape researcher Tim McSweeney has drawn many parallels between the organic coarsework designs apparent in potentially indigenous stone rows and Algonquin and other indigenous serpent iconography. This mostly buried feature led me to think of Tim's many posts on the Cherokee's Uktena, and I decided to tread carefully. In this case, a ceremonial purpose might not seem apparent. There wasn't anything obvious about this buried form, yet somehow it spoke to me. And it felt as if paying respects led to several discoveries, cascading discoveries, along my way back to the cairn-like structures I'd seen before. But that, of course, is an entirely subjective appraisal. As an artist and someone who's done a lot of layout and design, I notice patterns and designs, natural and man-made, as parts of the landscape. I first noticed a possible stone row running off the ridge on my right, and wondered why. There was a low stonework there, curling down off the ridge and running downhill. There were also some fin-shaped stones alongside. When I came around the outcrop, I thought I knew, because this was a giant fish form. The flat rock face does appear to resemble a fish. And it seems to have been humanly enhanced to bring out the form nature evoked. This appears to be an added tailstone, which I believe could have been shaped. The dorsal fin on top also appears shaped. Now here's the thing. I don't know how they did this, and archaeologists don't believe indigenous in this area scaled up their stonework from small tools to larger work. They allow for pecking on a larger scale, not much else. But expert stonemasons surveying work at America's Stonehenge noted the old indigenous work did indeed appear shaped using percussive techniques. Geologists will offer that this stone could easily have been shaped naturally. And I'm sure that's true. I'm also aware that the scope and scale of what nature was capable of was often judged using a mistaken 19th century paradigm of a pristine wilderness where everything was done by nature. There was no one really here. The myth of the pristine wilderness turned out to be false, and so perhaps too much has been attributed to nature. If it is natural, then I credit human agency to moving it here to serve as a tail to an obvious fish form. This niche in the stone face is curious. It may have once held offerings of some kind. I climbed up to get a better look at this dorsal fin area. This does look shaped to me as an artist and a designer. I believe that what we're looking at here is an intentionally, humanly manipulated natural form, enhanced to resemble a fish. So, perhaps, a fish effigy of some kind. Following on from the fish form, back towards the twins and other cairn-like stone structures, still a ways away, I came across enhanced low ridges with stones stacked atop them and quartz incorporated. These low ridges are not connected. There's no stonework evident in between. The stonework on this one looked a bit like a stone row from on top, but the stonework continues around the sides and down. Seem more complex. The next ridge looked quite different. Clearly degraded, these low ridge forms didn't lend themselves to easy interpretations. But they led to other, more obvious, low collapsing stone structures, which led me to believe these low ridge structures may have been significant as well. These low ridge forms led me into a hollow where I found several new to me but possibly ancient, collapsed stone structures. I'm not sure how aware anyone is of the second hollow lined with stonework at this site. These structures blend in a bit, given the state they're in. And we're a couple of hollows away from the other one, with the more prominent stonework. This first one looks a bit rounded, and looked a bit turtleish, but that's strictly a subjective impression. Was this flat stone next to it once part of the structure? Or could it have been a grinding stone of some kind? Again, we see placement of quartz in the structure. Each stone form seemed to lead me to the next one. As I finished appreciating one, the next would become apparent. The second one was more elongated, almost a boat shape. It's clear this is built with intentional design. It's not a random bunch of rocks piled up out of the way of a farmer. There's a design here, and a curiously fin-shaped stone. This downhill corner almost looks like an entryway opens up in it. Intriguing, the way this stone protrudes. After coming around the downhill side of this structure, I looked back across the hollow and spied another cairn-like stone assemblage. Once again, turtle comes to mind. And once again, we see quartz incorporated in the structure. A small cluster of stones a short distance away up the hill next drew my attention. This was small, and seemed more haphazard. Yet there was still quartz involved, and still some structure evident. After these, I found my way back to the opposite side of the hollow, and found this feature. Different from the standalone structures, this stone feature was more of an enhanced outcrop. A closer look revealed some very intriguing details, and that it was possibly enhanced into a fish form. The stonework on the right resembles a tail, with shaped stones used intentionally, we see when we get close. And once again, interesting use of quartz in the structure. The side or left stonework seems to resemble an extended fin, with pointed, shaped stones incorporated intentionally as part of the design. Drawing the feature helped me appreciate what I was seeing, although this isn't exact. This is designed stonework, not simply random piles of cleared field rocks mounted up against an outcrop. The next low feature I was drawn to wasn't instantly evident, but grew more visible as I approached. Hard to make out what this one's original shape might have been. There's just a hint of something remaining. This could be a drain, I suppose, from this angle, were it not for the rest of the structure. It does look different from other angles. Even here, we find quartz. Next, I came across the last feature I'd find in this hollow, tied into a boulder. This extension has a sort of semicircular shape. When we come around to the other side, we see that the boulder, from this perspective, is quite triangular, shaped like many boulder heads of serpent rows. Speaking of serpent heads, though I didn't find any more stonework as the hollow dropped off ever more steeply, I did come across this huge boulder, or outcrop, which also reminded me of a serpent's head. Imagine this greeting you as you pulled up on the shore of a glacial sea at the end of the Ice Age. Making my way back towards the twins and the other stonework, I came across one more new-to-me stone structure on top of a hill. Besides this platform, there weren't many stones up on this low rise of a hilltop. You wouldn't build a clearing pile in a high place. Curious structure. There's a beautiful waterfall back over near the twins, and I thought I noticed some stonework up in there last time. I couldn't be sure, and it was near the end of my visit, so I left it for later. Welcome to later. There were 2 short stone rows in here. One could be colonial, settlers' work, and the other, the low Boulder row, looked to me to be of indeterminate origin. It could be indigenous work. My guess is that these were part of a mill or dam of some kind, given the nearby water. Funny, this upper wall looks different from the other side, more organic. The other side was much more orderly in its coursework. Two very different and intriguing hidden stone rows. There are 2 larger cairn-like stone constructs on the way from the waterfall to the twins. One is in much better condition than the other. And now the twins, which aren't really twins. They don't look the same, and there's a third one next to them. But for some reason, these two feel separate from the third. This third assemblage is certainly interesting in its own right. After seeing deliberately spilling cairn-like stone structures at the Manitou-Hasanash Preserve in Rhode Island, I'm wondering if the one on the right is one of these spilling forms as well. This gives you a general idea of the spilling cairn-like form. Here's one at Manitou-Hasanash Preserve. And the one back in Jericho. Interesting. The twins at Manitou-Hasanash Preserve brought me back here to see these two, but now that I see them again, I'm reminded of a different form I'd seen at the preserve. There is much to take in at this site. After the twins, I revisited some of my other favorite stone structures here, covered in my first two video presentations on this site. First experiencing, then revisiting cairn-like stone constructs, odd-shaped erratics, and more in Jericho, Vermont. Check those out for more about the many other stone features found here. Rather than growing repetitive in this third presentation, join me on my Ancient Stone Mysteries newsletter on Substack if you'd like to see more of this return, including raw field footage and extended cuts of some amazing stonework. Had no idea when I decided to follow the path to the old stone row that I'd come across so much new-to-me stonework making my way back to the original site. If you've enjoyed this presentation, be sure to check out more videos on my YouTube channel. You can also join our Ancient Stone Mysteries Facebook group and find more of my coverage on Medium and Substack. Just go to ancientstonemysteries.com for more. I'm Mike Luoma. Thank you for experiencing these subtle stone structures, possible effigies, and twin cairn-like stone assemblages in Jericho, Vermont with me.